Oh boy, Red Dead Redemption 2 was just confirmed to launch in 2 months. We are all gonna dive and basking in the glory of what can only be described as, oh hey, hi, how are you? Hey, who cares? Creativity can come to you even when you're on the toilet, which is where I was writing the intro portion to this script. Okay, you know what? I do this every time. I end up bashing myself for like half the video and waste everyone's time. Video game delays. They plague the gaming industry and are basically everywhere. They prevent little Johnny Boy over here from playing his new Cloverit Ghost Master Edition on the Sega Dreamcast. The general consensus that people have is that video game delays are bad and companies should be more professional, which I personally agree with, but I've been a bootleg developer of my own game for a couple years now, and now that I've actually got that perspective, I think that delaying has a bit more going on than just ruining Kagan's Christmas.
What the fuck is this shit?
Yes, delaying a game is bad for business. Also, yes, delaying a game is bad for the consumer. And I don't even know how this arose. I wonder if the first delayed game was widely accepted or just totally boycotted. I don't even know if announced movie delays even happen, or if delaying the new Burger King Big Whopper Wimbus Bimbus edition is even a thing. But it seems like delays are usually prominent in the entertainment format of gaming. Showing one date, then changing that date to a later one so that the game can be finished or redone can really throw consumers off. On paper, it makes sense though, for companies really for the consumer trying to make the best experience they can. Being ambitious about a deadline and wanting to extend that deadline to better the game is bad in a few areas, but the good kind of outweighs the bad. Now personally, I care about games and I want them to be coherent experiences. We play games that pour endless money and time into them for our personal enjoyment. A lot of things can make a game bad, but the majority of those things could be fixed if there's more time put into development, whether the premise is bad or not. Through a development process, things always change, and the majority of the time it's for the betterment of the experience. Recently, there have been some big companies putting out games that just aren't quite done by their past standards. One of the most disappointing to me was Mafia 3, which just was really unfinished. The mission structures were copy and paste, the game had numerous glitches, the PC port was butchered, and all by a 2K subdivision company that had numerous talented people working on the game. The game should have been great, and it showed that it had promise through cutscenes and world design, but it was smashed by 2K, who in recent years has been making some odd decisions. For Mafia, some ex-developers talked about 2K shoving them in a box and being forced to cut corners so that they could put it out as fast as possible. And it's really depressing that big companies seem to be doing that a lot recently. When it comes to game development, there's so much that goes on. The art team, the creative directors, coders, animators, modelers, sound design, story writers, the list goes on. And I would be lying if I said I didn't take those things for granted some of the time. Games as a medium have grown so large and professional that they rival movies in terms of the amount of money and effort needed to fund and create a project. It all starts with just one idea by one person, and that idea can blossom and evolve into your favorite game within the span of a few months or even years. The thing that makes games indefinitely more dense and complex is the idea of involvement. Whether it be a Telltale game or a Quake game, there's always some kind of reason to include yourself instead of just observing a narrative. The fact that in a game like BioShock Infinite, I can find my way into an old washed up bar and find my way down into a basement to see a scared, hungry child and give a slight amount of comfort or hope to that child by picking up a guitar and singing an old hymn, while another player can just run past the bar to continue the mission, just shows that instead of spectating events like a movie or painting a picture by listening to music, in games, you get a sense of involvement. Whether you carry a team in Overwatch or you fight to help a character that you can't help but care for. Video games have a whole other layer of possibility compared to the other types of medias. And that alone can be a problem, especially with a hungry industry with corporations that yearn for money. In the development of a game, it's often said that if you cut something that's good, nobody will know what was cut, so they'll have different or lower standards. But with events like E3, which are a blessing and a burden to small and big developers, games often come short of what they show because of that logic. Take for instance No Man's Sky. The game was meant for so much, and the developers were passionate about what they were doing. They were so proud that they just had to show it off and get input and have that moment of glee where everyone throws their hats. But after all their ambitions were burying them up to their necks, Hello Games just had to cut corners on a few big things that they had hoped to have in the final game. And that's because of the pressure they had. When Sean Murray came up on stage at E3, he was genuinely humbled to be there, ready to show their work-in-progress industry innovator. And the problem with doing that was that they had locked themselves into a box, with the public eagerly waiting and the publisher giving them a limit on time and resources to meet some sort of deadline because the game had been announced, and if it would have taken 7 more years, it would have theoretically lost sales if it hadn't released pretty close to the time of announcement. When you're a developer working under a big company, whether you like it or not, you can't just sit pretty and do nothing. A bustling industry doesn't sit still, and neither will its subdivisions. Throwing funds into something that might or might not work and getting a variable result with a team of people that can only work so hard for so long isn't a good investment in the eyes of a big company. Take, for example, this year's Prey. Arcane Studios has been a decently well-known developer for a while. They've had a few breakthroughs, main one being Dishonored. And when a game like Dishonored does well, the publisher, in this case Bethesda, gives more or less funds to the idea of a sequel or follow-up to the title under the same IP. That's why we see big improvements in new sequels to games. The passion of a development company making a fresh new project is unmeasurable, but only held back by the amount of resources and money put into the company and furthermore the new project. Prey is a game exactly like that. Dishonored 2 was funded, and despite a less than decent PC port, it improved the previous game's footprint while also making the experience fresh and different, and most importantly, coherent. Now, Prey wasn't necessarily like that. Prey was different. A new idea, a test run in the eyes of Bethesda, and a turning point for Arcane. Despite the lower funds, which makes sense, you wouldn't want to invest something into some random thing that's barely in the concept stage, and even when you have something to show, it's hard to step through the door and come out swinging, and for that reason, publishers kind of hold back on routing more and more money into a new project. Prey did pretty well. So in that area, Prey was kind of floating around on shaky ground, but the game came out and met players with an open heart, and reviews have been very positive. The game, however, did have polish issues, inconsistent animation, simplistic branching endings, tone differences between cutscenes and the actual game, but aside all of that, it hit where it counted, bringing in a familiar feel of survival with a great feel of open-ended gameplay and endless lore. All of that shows how a game is made in this day and age. A never-ending cycle of investments, failures, and successes. That kind of brings me to the idea that the reason behind Red Dead 2 getting delayed is more in the fact that the developer is confident, and so is the publisher because the previous title did so well. And based on how the past sales were, the magical people that predict the sales of new games expect that people will wait long enough just for the game to actually be good, and it'll still sell well. Through all of that mess, when a publisher knows a game will do well, it doesn't hold back when it comes to pushing a company to the limits. And that brings up the age-old tales from Irrational Games. Former developers of BioShock, System Shock 2, BioShock Infinite, Freedom Force, SWAT 4, and a few other games. Now, for the Shock games, pretty much everyone knows how in-depth and creative they've been. How they can make you think and feel things you thought impossible for the medium of gaming before. One of the lesser-told tales about Irrational Games publisher 2K is how they constantly bashed and ridiculed people there about the long years between development, the tweaking, the creating, and the writing of their games. While BioShock Infinite came out a massive success, after 7 years of development, the game made over double its intended budget or more, but 2K was fed up with the delays and the not so insanely massive sales. While it did quite good, apparently they didn't think the time and resources were worth it. Ex-developers have tweeted about how 2K have treated them during development and after development when Irrational was shut down. This kind of thing, true or not, has been a thing for tons of games, and the needy publisher above the humble developer has impacted the quality of our AAA games for as long as games have been coming out, however small or large of an impact it might be. But now, in 2017, we're starting to see a little bit more of video game delays. Maybe not less pressure on the developers, maybe it's just the publishers seeing the massive industry hit that No Man's Sky and other recent games have made, and maybe they're trying to switch gears a little bit and add more wiggle room for their predictions of sales, but only on sequels or well-known follow-ups to standing titles. Not to say that it's impossible to make a good game with less support from your publisher. I mean, we've seen it countless times, from Prey to brand new ideas like Mass Effect or Fallout coming out before they were franchises. Time allows perfection, but the unprofessional thing about companies right now are the unreal standards for what it takes to make a video game. It's more intricate than making a movie, and sometimes it can take more creativity than making music, but publishers sometimes are still cold-hearted and disregard passion or creativity for the betterment of sales. Despite bad reviews, which have recently started being blocked by publishers or only allowed if they're positive, the soulless mentality behind some publishers baffles me and many other people. There's tons of people hard at work, stripped of pride and passion because of their extremely long work hours, unreal code of conduct, and professional air around developers stripped of their rights by their needy publisher. Most known would be Ubisoft, with some downright malicious acts in the past. Downgrading, broken games, broken servers, people being being almost tortured by their superiors. It really makes me sick, and it turns me away from the idea of developing games being a job possibility for me in the future, because being a part of grinding gears has gotten more and more disgusting as the years have progressed. But sometimes a development company can be so confident in itself and try to fight back. And in a way, that's what Irrational Games had been doing. Constant abuse after so long, they decided to cut funds, lay off people, and take a core few into a small development ring to code away quietly with less interaction, almost becoming independent. And the gears of the gaming industry just keep turning, hopping on the latest trends with genres and price fluctuations, delaying just a little bit more because of the things that have shifted the industry just a little bit, like Mafia 3, Ubisoft's Past, No Man's Sky, Mass Effect Andromeda, and a few select other things that have actually made a difference, whether it was worth it or not. As for the general consensus on delays, it's still an unprofessional thing, and not the main fact that games are relocating their release dates. It's the fact that publishers push development processes so much that either a game has to cut corners and come out unfinished, or just downright change the ambitious date of release given to them by their publisher or themselves. So in my mind, knowing the dark sides of the gaming industry makes me feel multiple things. Hatred for the publisher, branding a date in the future, and forcing a game to come out of hiding so that they'll feel that their precious resources and funds aren't going to waste in the eye of the public. Love for the fact that the developers care so much to actually sacrifice sales and professionalism to craft the best experience possible. And confusion for where the direction of the industry as a whole could go next. Into a more dark, suppressed conduct, or a more open and honest era. Whatever happens with a game, whether it be a delay or it not being shown when you're at E3, I'm always glad to just crack open a new experience and play it as a finished product rather than something less finished.
Stop it.
So that's my take on video game delays. If I forgot something or got something wrong, please let me know, and feel free to make the comment section a war zone, whether it be a war zone of memes or harsh opinions and insults. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think. I had to cough. I'm sorry.